The chamber trembled with a sharp laugh as Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, her tone dripping with dismissal. Military knowledge? Please. That's not real policy. Her words cut through the air like a challenge meant to wound, not to reason. But across the table, Tulsi Gabbard did not flinch. Her eyes locked in steady, piercing, carrying the weight of sandstorms and sacrifice. The narrator's voice rose above the silence. In a room where words carry weight, one exchange would leave the nation gasping. What Tulsi revealed next left Jasmine and everyone watching utterly speechless. In American politics, few credentials command respect like the uniform of military service. It is more than fabric, more than medals, it is a covenant of sacrifice, a silent language that says, I stood where others would not. Tulsi Gabbard carries that language in every word, every pause, every memory etched from service abroad. Yet across from her sat Jasmine Crockett, a rising voice fueled by spectacle, quick retorts, fiery soundbites, applause built on confrontation rather than commitment. Their clash was not just a debate, it was a collision between two worlds. One spoke with the authority of lived duty, the other with the bravado of performance. And in that chamber, credibility itself was on trial. If Crockett could undermine Tulsi here, it wasn't just about discrediting one woman, it was about silencing every veteran who had ever given a piece of themselves to the flag. The weight of that moment hung heavy, as allies and adversaries alike leaned in. What Crockett saw as an easy strike was in fact a trap of her own making. Because she hadn't realized the truth, she had stepped into a battlefield where Tulsi's strength was unmatched. Jasmine Crockett did not rise quietly through the ranks of politics. She carved her path with a voice that cut sharper than any blade, a tongue trained in the art of confrontation. From courtroom theatrics to viral committee clips, she became known not for the depth of her arguments but for the fire in her delivery. Cameras followed her because she gave them moments, not movements. Every clash was a headline, every insult a clip that raced across social media. To her supporters, it was proof of courage. To her critics, it was empty spectacle dressed as strength. She carried herself with an air of certainty, as though volume could replace vision, as though sharpness could stand in for substance. She spoke on issues with the confidence of an expert, yet her grasp often betrayed gaps too wide to ignore. The contradiction became her signature: to claim mastery where experience was thin, to substitute intensity for insight. And the louder she grew, the more she believed her own bravado. That belief blinded her. When she turned her sights on Tulsi Gabbard, she saw only another opponent to be outshouted, another clip to fuel her momentum. She did not see the veteran's scars, the weight of service, the authority born not from theory but from lived sacrifice. Crockett thought the chamber was her stage, but in truth, it was a battlefield of credibility. And it was a battlefield where arrogance carried no armor. It was this very arrogance that would lead to her downfall. Tulsi Gabbard's story begins far from the spotlight, rooted in a family that taught her the value of service over self. The daughter of immigrants, she grew up with a sense of duty woven into her identity, a duty that would one day carry her across oceans and into the heart of war. When others her age were chasing careers and comforts, Tulsi stepped into uniform, answering a call few had the courage to heed. In Iraq, she walked roads laced with danger, where every sunrise was uncertain, and every night carried the weight of survival. There, politics was meaningless, and the only truth was life or death. She learned to lead not with bluster, but with composure, not with noise, but with quiet resolve. Her scars were not etched on the skin but in the discipline of her voice, the steadiness of her gaze, the patience to endure. That kind of strength cannot be faked, cannot be borrowed from rhetoric or borrowed applause. It is lived, earned, and carried forever. And on this day, standing across from Jasmine Crockett, those hard-earned lessons would silence the noise of empty words. The air in the chamber tightened as Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, her words sharp and unyielding. With all due respect, Ms. Gabbard, military service doesn't make you an authority on policy. Experience in the field is not the same as expertise in governance. Her voice carried a sting meant to rattle, punctuated by an impatient wave of her hand. A few chuckles rippled from her corner of the room, while others shifted uncomfortably, unsure if they had just witnessed boldness or disrespect. Tulsi Gabbard did not move. She sat with a stillness that spoke louder than interruption, her eyes fixed and unwavering. Her composure was not silence but strength, a quiet refusal to be baited. Every second of her calm pressed against Crockett's rising volume, the contrast impossible to ignore. But Crockett was not finished. She raised her voice higher, layering challenge upon challenge, mocking Tulsi's reliance on military service as if it were a weakness rather than a shield of honor. The room grew restless, split between laughter and disbelief, waiting for the inevitable clash. What Crockett mistook for passivity was in fact preparation. With each jab, she was unknowingly setting the stage for Tulsi's strike. Tulsi's voice entered the room with a calm weight, every syllable deliberate. "Congresswoman, I didn't learn military policy from textbooks or late-night debates. I learned it in Iraq." A pause. The words hung in the air, heavier than any insult. Eyes shifted toward her, curiosity sharpening into attention. "I served 2 tours overseas. I was deployed to a combat zone where decisions weren't theory, they were life or death." Another pause, and the silence deepened. Crockett, once leaning forward with fire, blinked, her smirk faltering. Tulsi's tone remained steady, but her words carried the force of lived sacrifice. "I wore the uniform. I held rank. I led soldiers who trusted me not with rhetoric, but with their lives. And I came home carrying the weight of those who never returned." The chamber grew still, the tension no longer about politics but about truth. Crockett shifted in her seat, her earlier bravado thinning into discomfort. She searched for a retort, but none came. Murmurs rippled through the audience, then silence, and then a smattering of applause broke through, swelling into a wave that even Crockett could not drown out. The narrator's voice cut through the moment. This wasn't just a rebuttal. It was a veteran reclaiming truth from arrogance. And as Tulsi's gaze held firm, Jasmine Crockett sat rattled, her confidence crumbling against the immovable weight of lived authority. The moment Tulsi's words echoed across the chamber, the digital world ignited. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were circulating across every platform, each edit sharpening the contrast between Tulsi's calm authority and Crockett's faltering bravado. Commentators filled the airwaves before the day had even ended. Some called it the defining moment of the season, others called it a lesson in respect. Progressive outlets praised Tulsi for reframing the debate around service and sacrifice, while even some critics admitted the sheer force of authenticity in her delivery. It was no longer just about 2 women clashing, it was about what America values when arrogance collides with lived experience. Veterans groups issued statements of support, lauding Tulsi's words as a defense of every man and woman who had worn the uniform. Political figures across party lines chimed in, some with admiration, others with caution, but none denying the impact. Crockett, once trending for her sharp retorts, now found herself mocked for overreach. What began as an exchange in one chamber became a national conversation overnight, one that questioned not just the credibility of a single politician, but the very culture of dismissing sacrifice. And in that storm, Tulsi's voice rose above the noise, steady, unshaken, undeniable. Tulsi did not linger on her victory. When the noise settled, her voice carried again, calm, resolute, and larger than the chamber itself. "This isn't about me," she said, her words cutting through the tension with striking clarity. "It's about respecting service no matter who wears the uniform, no matter where they come from, no matter what they look like. Service deserves dignity." The statement reframed everything. What had begun as a clash of egos became a reminder of values too often forgotten in the haze of politics. In that moment, Tulsi placed experience above empty rhetoric, humility above arrogance, truth above theater. The room, once restless, found itself stilled by the power of principle. Her words stretched beyond the chamber walls. To immigrants who built lives through sacrifice, to families who sent loved ones into danger, to every veteran whose story was drowned out by louder voices, Tulsi's message was validation. America's strength, she reminded them, has never come from spectacle or soundbites. It has come from sacrifice. From those willing to give everything so others could speak freely. And on this day, that truth stood taller than arrogance, unshaken and undeniable. Crockett came armed with arrogance, but Tulsi answered with proof, the kind of proof written in service, sacrifice, and unshakable truth. What began as a clash of words became a lesson that echoes far beyond politics. In a world of noise, let us stand for truth, service, and respect. Let us honor those who have walked the hardest roads so their voices are never dismissed. If you believe sacrifice should never be silenced, share this story, subscribe to this channel, and be part of a movement that chooses dignity over arrogance every single time.